early life was so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare from bursting in air came through the night. That flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and
Thank you very much. Thank you for being patriotic American.
Well, good evening, everybody. Ed Levine here, social media director, and guy in charge here on the computer screen. I've lost my train of thought because I was still listening to the guy sing.
Yeah,
We've got Pat Webb with us, our secretary and treasurer of the organization, Philip Van Cleve, our president, and special guest Amanda Chase on our December showing here of our. It's got some snowfall there.
Nice.
And so welcome, Amanda. What we'd like to do is, we're glad to have you on, and we want to just give you 15 minutes to talk to you about what's going on in your world and what's coming up in the General Assembly, and just chat with you. So take it away.
Well, first of all, thank you all for having me, and I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. I believe every gun owner in America was cheering this past Thanksgiving. We have so much to be thankful for. Virginia turned red. And by the way, I was the one person who said Virginia was still red. I knew it. I refused to believe it was blue, and I was right. So, Virginia has always been red. People love freedom. And I think they're just tired of politicians. And but more was on the stake this year than any other time in our history. And everyone came out. All the freedom-loving Virginians came out. And I'm super excited to be working with Glenn Youngkin on his transition team. And he has assured me 100% that he's for our gun rights. He said he keeps a gun in his house to protect his home at night. And I said, well, I don't want anything from you. The only thing I want is to be able to legally carry my firearm. And so I'm holding him to that. And I believe he'll deliver on that. So I'm really excited. I was with Winsome Sears, our lieutenant governor-elect, earlier today in downtown Richmond. And gosh, she's so comical. I love to hear her speak. It's not a boring speech, right? She always has some interesting commentary, real life discussions. I think she could serve as a SNL skit. She'd be really good at that. Jason Mayer is our attorney general. Got to spend some time with him earlier today as well. Let me tell you what I'm into. I know we've only got 15 minutes, and I have a lot to talk to you all about. As you all have heard, General Assembly is coming up this year, and I'm very hopeful for the first time in 2 years. And I was getting a little grim, a little depressing there in the Capitol. They took away our ability to carry in the General Assembly. And, it's just incredible what has happened, just the attacks on our Second Amendment. Now, what I have done in preparation for General Assembly session is I've gone all the way back to 2020, January of 2020, when the assault on our gun rights began. And I systematically went through old legislation and had bills drafted based on that. So everything from, the localities being able to create gun-free zones to one gun a month. These all have to go. I mean, these are restricting our Second Amendment rights. And true to form, these are many of the bills that I'm going to take up. And I'll concentrate on those bills tonight. But while I'm here, I also want you to know I divided my legislation into fourths. And as many of you all know, in the Senate, unlike the House, we can only draft 40 bills. And of those 40 bills, I have to prioritize because I can only drop 25 of those bills, which is very frustrating, but we're not going to talk about that right now. I would divide my bills into fourths. I have a fourth of my bills covering gun rights, a fourth covering election integrity, another section that's covering pushing back against mandates, vaccine mandates, mask mandates, and then one to keep our veterans here, to exempt their retirement benefits from income tax up to $40,000. And I've already started working with the governor-elect on that proposal. And I've actually already spoken with him about pushing back against mandates on the localities as well. We can talk about that as well. So let's start with the gun rights. Is this a 30 or 60-day legislative session? Actually, we don't have a 60-day. It's either 30 or 45. But this will be a 45-day session. It is the budget year, so we have to be discussing the budget, and we'll probably have a lot of amendments to this governor's budget. Let me, first of all, begin by addressing the gun legislation that I'm specifically going to be talking about here. Specifically, the gun-free zone. Let's go with my number 18. This reverses House Bill 9, reporting a lost or stolen firearm with there being a penalty. This is just needless legislation. We're good firearm owners. We keep up with our guns, but we should not turn law-abiding citizens into criminals just because maybe they're, I've gone shooting with a number of people, and we have all of our guns out on the table, and it's so easy for one of those guns to get in with somebody else's. It's ridiculous that that is even a law that passed. Let's talk about, I'm looking through my bills here. Reverses gun-free zones created by the localities. That was House Bill 421. We're going to be eliminating that bill. Limitations on purchases, we talked about that. I call that the freedom to shop. If I go to, let's say somebody doesn't have a concealed carry permit, and I meet with women going through domestic violence issues, and they want to protect themselves. They don't have time to take a class or get their concealed carry. I mean, maybe they want to open carry, but whatever reason, we should not be limiting people's ability to purchase more than one gun. I call it the freedom to shop bill. So, let's see. The school boards the ability to determine the ability to carry a firearm. That's House Bill 1080. That's one of the bills that actually passed and needs to be reversed. Let's talk about the most obvious one, Senate Bill 1381. You should be able to carry at your state capitol. We need to have our lobby day again. And, most people don't want to come to downtown Richmond because of the crime rate. And then on top of that, you want to tell them they can't carry a firearm. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I can tell you from being in Richmond and spending a lot of time there this week, nobody's there. You need to pack a lunch because you won't find a place to eat. That's for sure. So it hurts business. If you have terrible gun laws that make people not feel safe coming to your community, it's going to affect your business. I don't go anywhere where I can't carry. And I know a lot of gun owners feel the same. So that addresses some of the gun bills. Systematically, I have gone through and the best I could pick out the bills that are the most egregious. Like I was saying, we've only got 25 bills that we can drop. What I will also tell you is that I do believe we're going to have the governor-elect is going to sign these bills. I think we will get some cooperation in the Senate. We only need 2 senators to sign on board. And I do have a really good relationship with Senators Edwards, Senator Deeds, Senator Morrissey, who I sat with. So if anybody can make it happen, I know that I will. And I'm very hopeful and optimistic that we'll get that through. Anybody have any questions? I'm looking at some of the comments over here. Yes.
What are the chances of getting these bills out of committee?
Well, I have to look at the committee makeup because there will be some changes. So we'll see. I know what happens whenever the people show up, because I remember back in 2020, whenever Vcdl showed up and all the gun owners showed up, we had over 80,000 people showing up at the Capitol. And I remember it was House Bill 961. It was Delegate Mark Levine was presenting his bill, which would have turned us all into felons. Basically, if we had a magazine with 10 or more rounds, we would have automatically overnight become felons. And the room was packed out. And as soon as I walked into the room, I had Senator Edwards, who, as you know, chairs that Judiciary Committee, pull me over to the side and say, "Don't worry, Senator Chase, this bill is going to be passed by for the year." And that was code for, please tell everybody to stop calling us and beating us up. We get the message. And they were honestly terrified. Well, it's probably bad public policy to tick off gun owners anyway. I mean, they've got guns, so don't tick them off.
So what you're saying is it's really important for everybody to show up for Lobby Day this year.
Well, absolutely it is. And, you know, it absolutely is important for everybody to show up. And I know I participated whenever we did the drive around, and, you know, there's nothing like showing up at the Capitol in person. And, you know, I know that this year is more of a lobby day, and I understand the reasoning for that. And I hope we can quickly change that and reverse that policy. And, you know, my hope is potentially, now that we have the House, you know, maybe we have some movement. I know that Speaker Fillercorn was the one that initially put that ban in place. So we'll see. We'll see how gutsy these Republicans are. If it were me, I know what I would do. I would issue an executive order to reverse all of that until we could get some legislation passed, but we'll see what happens. What else do I want to talk about? I want to talk about election integrity, because this is what I've been working on since the convention. I've flown across the country, for those of you who have been following me, to Arizona to actually witness the audit that took place there, because of the Arizona Senate issued a subpoena to the Board of Supervisors of Maricopa County and demanded a full forensic audit. Now, there is a difference between a full forensic audit and a risk limiting fake audit. Very big difference. Now, Virginia Democrats like to say, well, we've already audited the vote in Virginia. It was a fake audit. One vote in Amelia County that I currently represent, you're talking about 14,000 people. One vote was pulled, and that's considered a risk limiting audit. That's not really an audit. That's called a fake audit. Fake news and fake audits. That's a fake audit. So after the audit was done, you know, you all followed what happened. We flew back to Arizona for the full release of the report by Doug Logan with Cyber Ninjas. I was sitting there in the Senate gallery in Arizona. And what did we find after a full forensic audit was done? What do you know? They found instances of, yes, fraud, proof of fraud. And I keep hearing John Reed on WRVA, who's a dear friend and advocate for conservatives and gun right owners, show me the fraud. And I said, John, give me a full forensic audit and I'll show you the fraud. I'm now chairing the National Election Integrity Caucus. We have about 150 legislators across the country that join us on these calls. Probably it's every 2 or 3 weeks we have a phone call. We've been doing this since we all traveled to South Dakota. We saw files that were deleted. We saw duplicate ballots being counted by the thousands. We saw mail-in ballots that were going out to people. Many people said, you know, I went to cast my vote. That's what we hear the most of here in Virginia is I went to cast my vote and the vote was already cast. Well, what happened there? Lots of people in Virginia, we have something called a permanent voter registration list where they will automatically send your ballot if you give them permission to do that. One of the things that I'm going to do is get rid of that. I'm going to basically eliminate mail-in ballots by saying that if you have a mail-in ballot, then it has to be notarized and you have to have a signature on file with the State Board of Elections. That's where they are really cheating across the country.
Well, how are dead people going to get their ballot notarized? You're going to
Thoughtless.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Thank you for making that point.
I think it was Bob Dole recently when he died. After he died, they found a letter he gave. Did you see that? Where he said, "Now I'll finally get to find out if I can vote in Chicago." That was the letter he wrote before he died, but he knew it was not.
You know, it's unbelievable. What about something as basic as photo identification? I mean,
we don't need that for guns, do we?
No, of course not. I mean, it's just insane the hypocritical arguments by the left.
They found their ID to get their vaccine.
Well, exactly. You know, they call it racist, and it's unbelievable. I guess that would make getting the vaccine racist.
And that would make gun control racist, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Get a photo ID, so they're admitting it's racist.
You cannot live
saying photo ID to register and not to vote. That's what one of our EMs has said down below.
That's right. So let's see. Make it harder and harder for those of us who never. Where did it go? Okay, I saw a comment. I was reading it, then it went away.
Here it is. It's on the screen now.
Okay, where did that? Okay, make it harder and harder for those of us who never know from one day to the next whether or not we can make it to the polls. Sad to hear this. Oh, my favorite liberal from Chesterfield County. I'm so glad you're joining us today. I hope you're videoing this and taking notes. Listen, you have to guard and protect your money in the bank, right? So why not show a photo ID? Would you want your bank to say all of a sudden, you know, you don't need to present a photo ID? If your bank implemented that policy, you would think they lost their minds. Photo identification is a common sense way to ensure that you are who you say you are. And listen, I acknowledge that while most people are good, there are people with bad intent that, you know, they too much is at stake. They want to steal elections, and we can look at what's happening in other states systematically. And once we get a full forensic audit, listen, if you think there is no cheating, then you should have no problems with my full forensic audit, because it's about transparency and making sure that it's a fair election, making sure that everyone is who they say they are. And we do that on so many other fronts, and voting should be no exception. It's not about putting obstacles in people's way to vote. Do you want to say that about the COVID shot? If I have to present a photo ID, are you saying that that's going to deter people from getting a COVID shot? Because I could use that same argument.
Let me tell you something, Amanda. Something that would absolutely deter people is if they thought their vote didn't count. If they thought it was all a joke, that's what will deter people from voting, that will turn them away.
Well, that's exactly right.
Then they'll show up and they'll vote. That will be more inclusive to make sure that it's legit.
Yeah, we have to have common sense, and some of these arguments just defy all common sense, and we need to really get away from that. We need to think about what makes sense. It makes sense to have a photo ID, and you know what? We need to take the post office out of the decision-making process of determining which votes count and which ones don't. Unfortunately, not every single envelope gets stamped with a timestamp on when that vote came in. And so, I think it's imperative, and one of my bills says this: your vote has to be in by the close of business day for it to count. It is your responsibility as a voter to get your vote in and make it count. If you think that, the Postal Service came out right before Election Day and said, look, the mail service is going to be slow. And so you take a risk by putting your vote in the mail that your vote's not going to count. You have 45 days in Virginia to get out and vote in person. And we need to do everything we can to encourage people to vote in person. And I've heard people say, look, we need to shorten the time from 45 days to 7 days, or, I'm okay with it being 30 days. You've got kids in college that can come home. I want to do everything I can to make sure that everybody who wants to vote, whether they're traveling out of the country, traveling out of the state, kids in college, that they can actually vote in person at their home precinct. And by the way, your identification should be a legitimate photo identification issued by the Commonwealth of Virginia, and it's actually a free service that's provided. And I don't think it should be an out-of-state ID. So
Hey,
that's
Amanda.
a little
I'm
different.
sorry. Can I give you a couple minutes to wrap up on what you plan on doing in the gun world, and then we'll catch up with you another time?
Absolutely. Well, I think election integrity is very important because it's talking about protecting our gun rights. If who we elect into office determines the policies going forward. And so we need to make sure that our elections are safe and secure so that we can secure our constitutional right as gun owners. I'm going to leave you with this. We've got a big event that's coming up on January the 6th at the Boathouse Restaurant in Chesterfield County. And I want to encourage you all. And Ed, I will send you an email to your folks so that your members know when that event is. And, I just so appreciate those of you who are supporting me financially. As you all know, I don't take money from PACs or lobbyists. I don't. It's the people of Virginia that have backed and supported me. As I rerun for state senate in 2 years, I still have 2 more years, but just appreciate you guys helping me and all that you've done, and know that you have a voice in the General Assembly that's going to advocate to protect our Second Amendment rights.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We'll
We'll be in touch.
Don't worry.
Thanks, guys.
Philip or Pat, any last minute questions for Amanda?
No, just thanks for joining us, and thanks for standing up for our gun rights.
Absolutely.
Her cell phone, so I can call her if I need to talk to her. I usually do.
That's right. Gun rights is an
And
American.
she answers her cell phone. I call her all the time.
She does.
Mhm.
That's right.
No dodging there.
Okay. Thanks again, Amanda.
All right. God bless you guys. Take care.
Good night. There we go.
All right.
So let me, I've seen some comments about the universal background check and some of the dealers charging more than the $15 that the state allows. And somebody said that they weren't comfortable going to a home dealer, an FFL that works out of their home, out of their house. There are gun dealers out there, small independent gun dealers that will do the background checks for the $15. You just have to call around and find one and ask them what they charge for private sale transfers.
I think there's one in Beaver Dam.
There is, but I didn't want to toot my own horn, so.
I'll toot it. There's one in Beaver Dam. I can't remember the
Yeah.
name of it.
Well, I happen to know
Pat's
the one in
not-
Beaver Dam will only do private sale transfers if both parties are members of VCDL.
Oh,
So a couple
your
of people
first-
have gotten
your first
mad about
one's
that, but I mean, my philosophy is if you're not going to support the group that's filed lawsuits to overturn that law, then I don't need to do your private sale transfer. So
Yeah. If you're not interested in protecting your rights, then maybe you need to rethink.
right. Yep.
Well, yeah, we have a list of things that we're going to be looking at doing, and I'll just kind of read down the list, sort of in order of how I've sorted these things. Look, the priority list for VCDL for legislation are things that protect your right to protect yourself, and those are really getting rid of gun-free zones. 1 gun a month. I don't like 1 gun a month, and it's on our list to get rid of. We'll absolutely push to get rid of it. But if you can buy 1 gun, at least you can protect yourself. But if you can't carry at DMV, and you can't carry at a rest stop at 2 in the morning, and you can't carry in parks in Fairfax County or Fairfax City, those could get you killed. Therefore, those are at the top of the list. We have repeal of local gun control. We have repeal of the state agency gun ban. That covers the General Assembly. That covers rest stops. That covers ABC, DMV, anywhere currently that's a state agency like that. We want to repeal this has been a mess for churches. Repeal the daycare preschool gun ban. As you recall, the Democrats made that the same as if it were a real K through 12 school. And so the problem then became, well, what do you do at a church where so many churches have either daycare or preschool? Where's the line drawn when you're sitting there in mass or at a service? Are you technically in a school zone? And if you have a gun on you, you're a felon? Or are you okay? The school zone is just the room. It's not clear. And nobody wants to touch this because nobody has an answer to that. The only saving grace would be that the law says that you knowingly carried in such a place. So, unless they could show that you knew for sure you were sitting in a school zone, that may be the one saving grace of that law. So that's on the list. The school board gun ban. Same thing. What is a building full of people working at desks? Why does that particular one, a school board? I'm not talking school here. We're talking the school board. Just a building with people with desks and doing work like any other government agency. Why do they need to have a gun ban? We only have had I think 2 that have done this, but it needs to go. Nobody needs to do that. Polling place ban within 40 feet. Why are we doing that? Now, my polling place where I poll, unfortunately, is a school. And it's always been a school, so I've never known different. But I know a lot of you have churches and other places where you can vote. Why can't you? You've been carrying there. There's never been a problem. So that's another one that needs to be repealed. So those are like at the top. Those are the ones that protect your ability to carry. Another one that in a way affects you can be life threatening. They made a change to protective orders. And that protective order change says that now, before, with a protective order, somebody had a protective order against you, you couldn't carry a gun outside your home, you couldn't buy a new gun. But you could have guns in your house. Well, they took that away this time around, and now you can't even have a gun at home, which is absolutely nonsensical. If a person has a protective order against you, they have no business being in your home. That's why they got the protective order, to put a distance between you and them. If they're in your home, it could be there to do you harm, and the state has disarmed you. So I'd like to see that put back to where you can at least have guns in your home during that protective order. Again, because the other person shouldn't be there. Now, a few years ago,
well, somebody could falsely get a protective order against someone and then go deliberately, knowing they're disarmed, go to their house and try to harm them.
Yeah, shoot them. Yeah, knowing they're disarmed, break in and kill them. Oh, sure, dirtier things than that are done all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You have a bad breakup of whatever. So that's definitely that's another one that's an unfair thing that makes nobody safer. It definitely makes one person unsafe. Now, to show you the two-faced part of this, some years ago, the Republicans got the protective order, a bill put through that said if you get a protective order against somebody else, you're the one getting the protective order. It becomes a 45-day concealed carry permit. So you instantly can carry a gun while this order is out against this other person. Oh no, but McAuliffe killed that. Oh no, we can't have, especially women that are being threatened by an ex-spouse. We can't have them defending themselves. So they're quick to veto that. But on the other hand, they take away the right of somebody in the home to protect themselves. So that's got to go. That's ridiculous. We do want to repeal red flag laws. We've been down this road many times. And believe me, the lies out there are incredible. And now you got Fairfax County. Oh, we need to educate people so they know they can use this red flag law. Yeah, let's use the heck out of this unconstitutional law that doesn't let you even speak up to a judge for 2 weeks. They just come take your guns, and it can be absolutely bogus. There's nothing you can say about it. It gets no help that's the other thing that frosts my cake on this. So let's say it's legit. Suddenly a person has gone suicidal. Maybe they lost their job. They're getting a divorce, some other tragedy, and they're suicidal. Well, they get no help. The police show up and take their guns, which if they weren't suicidal before, that may increase the suicidal level, having been invaded and your rights stripped away like that. But it gets them no help. They're the same person that was going to commit suicide. Now they've taken their guns, so now they'll take sleeping pills or they'll do something else. There's no help there. There's nobody reaching out to them. We have laws already that will reach out to them, but those are being ignored. Instead, they want to put this thing in because it allows them to take your guns away without taking you to court and having to show, and let you defend yourself in court as to why it's bogus. So that's all.
It's going on now. I heard from a member today that's got, a friend of his ex-wife or whatever that wants to red flag him, and he was scared and didn't know what to do. And I immediately put him in touch with Gilbert today, and he joined U.S. Law Shield, and he's got everything under control. Kind of like let Gilbert and the team talk to the police first. So if the person tries to red flag them, they already know something about it, all that type of stuff. But that's hard to do for everyone all the time.
Yeah. And I've heard a rumor that Fairfax is kind of investigating a way that a person can file one of these claims and they remain completely anonymous, that you can't FOIA to find out anything, to find out who it was that told the police to do this. So, there goes another potential right if they try to push this. I mean, we would fight that absolutely tooth and nail too. You have an absolute right constitutionally to confront an accuser, to look them in the face. You can't have somebody you can't even talk to, you don't know who they are, accuse you of something and have that stick. That's totally not right. But this, I'm telling you, this is why, we fought red flag. I mean, you put this stuff in, it's bad, and then they only make it worse. It will not get better unless we get it repealed. That's just the way this works. It keeps getting abused. And Fairfax County is one of the worst about abusing this kind of stuff. You've got one decent person in your board of supervisors, and that's it. Let's see. We have repeal of universal background checks. We were doing just fine without that law. That complicated everything. You want to sell your own private property to somebody can't do it without finding a dealer. The dealer may not want to do that. Pat's got her reasons, but it could just be a dealer who says, I just don't want to deal with it. There's not enough money in there to justify me spending the time and hanging on to that paperwork forever. I've got no interest in that. And what if you're really rural? You may have to drive literally an hour or two to get to a dealer that can do it. And if something goes wrong, you got to go back. It was meant to discourage us. It was meant to stop private sales. That's all it was meant to do. It absolutely wasn't meant to lower crime. So we need to get that repealed. Same thing for mandatory background checks at gun shows. Again, if you're buying from a private seller at a gun show, then I don't care if they've got the option that you can optionally go up and go to state police and if you want and run a background check on somebody. As long as it's an option, I don't care. You're free to no, and most people did. But the idea that they force you to do that, no, that's got to go. Repeal of one handgun a month. Again, it's not horrible in Virginia because at least 700,000 people are exempt because they have a concealed handgun permit. But still, it's wrong. It's wrong-headed. It did not accomplish what they said. It's gun control for the sake of gun control, not to make anybody any safer. So that needs to go.
Now, our number one is preemption, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, going preemption and getting rid of the state-level gun bans in all the state buildings, including the General Assembly. That's one.
Just for those that don't know what that is, since they're new in the gun world or new to following us on laws, can you go over a quick definition of what preemption is?
Preemption says that the state passes a gun law, that is the law of the state, that no local government can pass any gun law that the state doesn't give them permission to pass. So therefore, once you learn state gun law, you're good wherever you go, because everybody has to live with that. Now, what we've got now is that got gutted a little bit in 2020, and now some of these localities have their own gun control. So, for example, if I go to a park in Chesterfield, I can carry a gun openly or concealed. But if I'm driving through, Roanoke City, and I think,
or Loudon.
or Loudon, well, Loudon, if you got a permit, you can carry.
But see that, so we have these cards that tell you what the gun laws are, but now you'd have to carry a book or an iPad
Right.
and check everywhere you go just to be legal.
Because that card covers state law. It doesn't cover all of these localities. Right now, there are 16 localities. It's all the communist ones, that have done this stuff. Fairfax County, Fairfax City, Arlington, Alexandria, all of those. And the irony of it is, like Alexandria, they wanted to be the first one on board with these restrictions. They admitted it. They wanted to be the leader in this. And as soon as they passed it that very month, their shootings went up 40% and stayed up.
Well, they've had their no gun signs printed for 20 years.
Yeah. So that's got to go, and that's top of the list. You need to have a uniform gun law. What other civil right do we divide up? Do we say, well, when you're going to Fairfax, you don't have a Fourth Amendment right. They're free to search your home anytime they want for any reason, day or night, doesn't matter. No, you're protected equally across. You've got equal protection across the Commonwealth for the Fourth Amendment, but not for the Second Amendment. There you get into all this stuff, which is nothing more than to discourage you from carrying or to get you thrown in jail. Good people, they should be going after bad people, but that's not the point. They're not trying to lower crime. They're trying to disarm us. That's the
you members out there, listen to what Philip says on that. Don't get in the mindset that it's too hard to carry here and there. I've got to go to a birthday party here and then I got to do that, but I don't know the laws in this county. Figure it out and carry anyway, because you're going to find yourself at a time and a place where you wish you carried and you didn't because it was too hard to research the laws, and then let that fire in you that makes you mad about that get involved, contact your delegate and senator and follow the alerts and get your friends involved, because we can't just sit back and, like Philip says, let somebody else carry your water.
Yeah, come to lobby day, fight with us, get side by side, because we've got to stop this stuff. No, you cannot let them discourage you. And I'll tell you what, if you are ever attacked, it'll be when you least expect it. You can bet on it. You can lay money on that. You cannot predict this stuff. You can't say, okay, I'm carrying a gun today because they're going to rob the 7-Eleven I'm going to be in. That's not how it works. It's going to be a day where it's going to be
It's like going out to buy your fire extinguisher the day you're going to have a fire.
Yeah. You can save a lot of money. Okay, I need to buy this because on Wednesday my house is going to burn down. No, it doesn't work that way. And you're either ready when something happens or you're not. It's as simple as that. You're ready or you're not. And if you're not, then whether you survive it is going to be maybe a little bit of luck. Continuing down this list here, we'd like to, on our list is to get rid of this requirement for in-person training. There is one other way we could do this. The reason I like I like online training as an option. I don't recommend that that's the only training you get. You should get as much training as you can, because that can make a difference. But I like the online for one really important reason. If somebody's in a hurry, they need a permit as soon as possible. They need to carry a gun right away because they found themselves under threat. And it's a very real threat. They need a quick way to get that permit. And one of the quickest ways, if you can go online and get the training with over right now, and the very next day you could apply for your permit, as opposed to having to wait a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get into a class, then take that, and then have to go down. That 1 or 2 or 3 weeks could be your death knell. I would like to see, if we left the training thing in place, that there is an emergency permit that you can apply for and get immediately. That's good for, say, 45 days. Well, and they can do a quick background check on you. It takes 2 minutes to do a background check to make sure you're clearly not a felon or something. Give you your permit for 45 days. And better than that, I'd like to get rid of permits, at least, or keep them as an option. If we had constitutional concealed carry, then this wouldn't be an issue. Somebody's under threat, they buy a gun, they carry. And the reason concealed is important, because you may be under threat, your life may be on the line, and yet you still have to go to work. Well, your policy at work might be they don't want you to carry a gun. then you make a decision. Would I accept being fired by one or being carried to my grave by six? A lot of people are going to say, I'll take the chance on being fired. I've got a family. I'm not going to let myself be killed. My job's not worth my life. Then by being able to carry conceal legally, you've covered that base at least. At least you're safe. It may cost you your job, but if you carry conceal, nobody should know anyhow.
And going back to what you said, there's not really many professional jobs out there that don't have some sort of computer-based training. Whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. I know I've countless of times for friends that are in all these professions that have sat down. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, I got a class. I got to watch this 2-hour video and take the test. And every other profession has it.
Exactly. In fact, they could even make it. I took a class for my DC permit recently, and there the train. All that was required was it was like a Zoom. Like, where you could see where all the students are there and you can see each other, and you've got to be there. You've got to be there answering questions, taking notes, taking the class. That's like being there in person. The only difference is you don't have somebody there watching you handle a gun, but a lot of classes don't require handling that way.
Well, what about the General Assembly that passed a bunch of laws last year remotely?
Good point. Good point. And that'd be a real good pushback on them. Say, well, geez, I know people that do some really important things, and they do it virtually. So that's on the list. They right now, if the NICS check doesn't come back right away when you're going to buy a gun, after 3 days of waiting, the dealer at their option can transfer a gun to you anyhow. It's like saying, all right, Nix, you took 3 days. That's too long. This is an instant check, not a 3-day check, in which case the dealer can do that. Well, they raised that to 5 days. And as Pat will tell you, even 3 days in reality often can come out to be a week. That's because holidays aren't counted. Weekends aren't counted. They don't count the day that you're there buying the gun. The 3 days starts the next day. So, you're out a minimum, if you're really lucky, of 4 days, but usually it's going to be 5, 6, 7 days. Then they raised it 2 more. Well, we want to put it back to 3. You might say, why not put it back to 0? Well, that's federal law. We're stuck with the 3 because of federal law. But
right. So last year, Christmas was on Friday. So if you bought a gun on Christmas Eve and you were delayed and it didn't come back before the close of business on Christmas Eve, it worked out to, I think it was 11 days, because you had Friday was a holiday 2 weeks in a row, and they only count working days. So it was 4 days the following week, and then 4 days the week after, or well, 5 days the week after that. No, 4 days the week after that. And then you had 2 more business days in the next week. So it worked out to be like 11 days. Now, somebody was delayed before Thanksgiving, and it was 14 days before that gun could be transferred without a disposition. Now, 90% of them, 99% of them come back within hours or even a couple of days. But I'm just a little tiny shop, and I have had some that have gone past the transfer without a disposition date by weeks. So, especially with COVID, if somebody had a record in another state and that state was shut down due to COVID or any other emergency that should happen, it can delay because the state police from Virginia have to talk to the officials from the courts of that state.
Well, it's just like they changed the law that you had to get your first concealed handgun permit in person. That it used to be you could just do your first one online or apply online. Then they changed it to it has to be in person. Then when COVID came around, they're like, yeah, but you could do it over Zoom and we'll count that as in person. They always do it when it's convenient for them.
Right.
Again,
they couldn't deny the right entirely, and so they had to make some concessions with the Zoom meetings.
Yeah, and of course the excuse, by the way, for this 5-day thing was an event that happened, the church shooting in South Carolina, where a guy that shouldn't have got the gun slipped through, and they never caught on to him for months. 5 days would have made no difference. They pulled it out of thin air. They would have had to delay all sales up to 2 months
And oh, by the way, right delayed is a right denied.
Yes, it is. And of course, that's the whole point, isn't it, Pat?
Mm-hmm.
So, what else have we got? The bump stock ban. Well, it's still a federal issue, and we're still in the courts on that. That'll be headed to the Supreme Court because we had a federal judge agree with us. Then it was appealed to a panel that disagreed with us. Then they appealed it to the whole en banc Sixth Circuit, and they tied. They couldn't decide. They dead tied on it 8-8, which a tie sends it back to the previous court, which means they're holding that the bump stock ban is legit. So now we're appealing to the Supreme Court, and hopefully they will settle the issue once and for all. And again, it wasn't solely about bump stocks. It was about the fact that BATF went off and made law and interpreted something totally incorrectly so they could make their own law. And we're really fighting that, so they can't do that anymore. That's the real issue.
And for those that don't understand, you might think in your mind, I don't have the money to waste on ammo. I'm never gonna buy a bump stock. This isn't gonna apply to me. But you should still follow along and pay attention, because things like in the bump stock bill that could affect you is they may have said, I want to get in the bill. There was language like anything that lets you put rounds on target faster. So if you went and got a new scope with a red dot or a trigger job, that could be interpreted as this will help you put more rounds on target faster. So therefore you'd be covered by this ban when you never had any intention at all of buying a bump stock. So that's why all of this stuff has to be looked at, and that has to be looked at like that. And all gun owners, whether you're tactical beardsmen or collectors or target men or self-defense people, we all have to stand together as one and fight the antis as one, rather than all our little groups that we don't agree with dog hunting or hunting on Sundays or shooting from prone position or whatever it is. We all have to agree.
Yeah, take it for instance, if you have an AR-15 with a mil-spec trigger and you replace that with, say, a 2-stage trigger or a Geisley trigger with a 4-pound trigger pull, that could potentially be covered under this interpretation that the ATF is doing, because it changes the function of the trigger. So, it makes it easier to use the gun and to fire faster. So if it increases the rate of fire, then it could potentially be interpreted by the ATF as a machine gun.
And you could get a Bloomberg prosecutor who's going to go after no matter what, just because he can. And I say Bloomberg, I'm sorry, it's Soros. Soros is the one that's putting all the money in to get these prosecutors in there that either won't prosecute real criminals or will prosecute the hell out of a good guy.
Right.
So we got to worry about that. Another bill, one of our members asked for this. This has bothered me for a long time. The Virginia Defense Force. That's sort of the state militia. They help in emergencies and all that. But they're disarmed. And I'm pushing to get a bill put in that if they've got a concealed carry permit, they should be allowed to carry concealed while they're doing stuff for the state. They're there for an emergency. Something's happened. They're put their lives on the line trying to help in an emergency in the state, and they're disarmed. That's crazy. So that's a bill that's in there.
I always said the same thing. Like if you're doing a ride-along program with the police or your auxiliary, you're helping direct traffic and you're doing stuff, and to everybody else out there, you look like a cop.
Yes.
And if somebody's like, oh, there's a cop directing traffic by himself, that's the guy I'm going to ambush.
Yes. You're
not allowed to carry because you're volunteering for the state or for the county or whatever.
Yeah, in Texas, where I was a volunteer, you were armed. And that's the way it should be. You're given all the, you got the training, you could arrest everything. But because people, they had to look really hard on my arm to see if the little word reserve. It didn't mean anything to them. We had reserve shot dead right next to the full-time officer. They don't care. So I agree completely on that. And VDF should have the ability to protect themselves if they got a permit. Now, there are really a few options we would have on permits. I mean, depending on what we might be able to get initially. Obviously, the ideal thing is would be constitutional carry. The second option would be to reduce somebody, if you were carrying concealed and you didn't have a permit, making the first charge a fine or something, some low fine, and the second one some low misdemeanor, something like that. Or the third thing might be to make permits free, totally free. No cost at all. You want a permit? You get the training, you turn in your application, and presto changeo, you got a permit. It didn't cost you a penny. It's bad enough they want us to get the permit for concealed carry. If we are,
since they use the driver's license for everything, they could just like you're a donor on your driver's license. You got the D for donor card. They can put an F for firearm, but you got your permit if you got the just one more class of your license.
As long as the police in other states don't pick up on that and then suddenly use that as an excuse to like Maryland, like they did that time to a gun.
All right.
Yeah, that's the only thing with that. I think, but I think having a separate permit's not a bad idea, but it should be free or let's get rid of them or something. I mean, there's ways we can definitely get to where we need to be.
Free is fine, but you have to take into account the cost of the permit is not the only cost. I mean, classes run quite a bit of money for a decent class. And so the whole point of having permits in the first place, the whole reason that a concealed carry permit or a carry permit or a gun permit was thought up was to price certain, quote, undesirable people out of the market.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is a racist law in the first place.
Yeah.
And
or against poor.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely.
It's against the elites.
The same reason the tax stance was, back in the day, $200 was really high, and that's the reason they made it that. So keep people doing it.
Yeah, so only the mafia could afford it.
And I approached my county about dropping the price of the permit down to $15. And one of the she was running for the Board of Supervisors at the time, and fortunately she didn't get elected. But I had asked all of the board members and all of the candidates that were running for board, would they support reducing the price down to $15, which they're required to charge by law. And she said, well, I don't think $50 is excessive. And if I don't see why everybody shouldn't be able to afford that. And I thought, what an elitist ad to take, because $50 might mean food for a week for somebody. Yeah. And that might make the difference between whether they eat or not,
She was trying to end.
And then, again, you have the class.
Yeah, she's emulating Marie Antoinette. Let them eat cake if they can't have bread.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's move on to, since the clock's ticking here, I've got a list. Lobby day plans. Well, as you know, right now, we pretty much ruled out having a rally. If something pops up at the absolute last minute, we'll let you know. But right now, no plans for the rally part. But we need people to show up. And if we show up in big numbers, that'll fill up downtown Richmond. People will see that as you're waiting in line. And that'll make the news.
One of the questions about Lobby Day and the rally and that type of stuff is kind of like what Amanda alluded to a little bit, and that is if the governor, which nowadays he's governor, he turns around and writes an executive order to undo all of this stuff. Well, I mean, just your facial expression right there kind of told me you don't see that happening.
Well, I'm not blaming the governor for this, but the Democrats this year made it law. So, he really can't decree that a law is not there. You've got to repeal the law. Now there may be some things he can do around the fringes. I'm not exactly sure all those details, but we need to repeal this. It's like the Democrats envisioned they were going to lose power and they wanted to have some way to lock this down. So it was going to be a little bit harder to get rid of. Somebody suggested, I think it's an interesting idea. We've done this kind of thing before. Those attending Lobby Day, I'd carry an empty holster on them as a protest. Show up with an empty holster.
I was going to do that at Loudon once, and they, at the court, and they said that it was they stopped the rules. That it was in the rules of the grounds because if they were afraid to see an empty holster because that told them there was a gun somewhere. And they said the judges actually can create the rules of what's contraband on the grounds. Because when you're waiting for someone to get the permit, you'd sit outside on the bench open carrying waiting for them, and then you got told you have to leave the property because the grounds that was contraband, even though there was no law. And if you fought them on that, it was going to be one of those judges' friends that saw the case.
Unless you maybe took it to the Supreme Court. Maybe that'd be the way to fight that. That's ridiculous. Nothing worse when the judges don't obey the law. That's always a very bad thing. But empty holster might be an idea. One could put a water gun in it.
Well, Tess just said she fought that in Fairfax and won the empty holster.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I almost got arrested for it in D.C.
yeah, it was gun paraphernalia. I think isn't that what they called it. What? It's like
That's
drugs.
like someone was handing you a 20-round magazine to sign.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, don't touch that, Philip. It could have been a setup where they wanted to hand it to you, and then now you got a 20-round magazine in D.C. As contraband.
Yeah, you never know. Another thing that one of our board members brought up was that maybe it would be a good idea to contact local elected officials, like your sheriff, or maybe your board of supervisor member, to lobby the General Assembly with you, or to lobby them on their own time to support the Second Amendment.
I know my sheriff here is already talking to the governor-elect because he's on part of the transition team, and he said he was selected because of being the sheriff, that he'd be a part of the gun legislation discussions.
Yeah, and he'll be good at it. But this is something, again, I think it was a great idea. I'm going to put an alert telling people, contact your sheriff, especially your sheriff, but any other elected official that's pro-gun, and tell them you'd appreciate if they would call the General Assembly, talk to the delegates and senators there, especially the senators, and say, you'd appreciate them supporting the Second Amendment, not destroying it. Wanted to talk about the Fairfax City home invasion. I had Fairfax County in the alert. It was Fairfax City, for whatever big difference that is. This was a case where somebody left their door unlocked. That's a bad idea. Because people can walk in the door, and somebody did, and they didn't want to leave, and they pulled out a knife and lunged at one of the people in the home, and another person was armed, and they fired a warning shot into the floor. As I noted in the alert, some of you may not have seen the alert yet. That came out today. Number one, the person isn't necessarily. In fact, we looked at a video last week where a person was not stopped at all by a warning shot into the floor right at his feet. That's when he came up and tried to grab the gun. It had the opposite effect of what the person was trying to do. And the problem is you've now wasted an opportunity. That split second you wasted shooting that gun in the floor, and then could be the difference between you living and dying, because that guy could now charge you and put that knife in your chest before you could bring
some ammo's $1 around now.
Yeah. Well, you got a hole in the floor to fix. And what if somebody was down in the basement, or that was the second floor, and you fired down into the first floor through the floor, or through the ceiling, or whatever?
There's no good reasons to do it.
There is none. However, one of our members, I'll put this in the alert, but I told him I'm going to steal this. He had a great quote that really summarized the problem with the warning shot. He said, on shooting to wound. I'm sorry, not the warning shot, but shooting to wound. And I think the warning shot almost falls in the same category. He was talking about shooting to wound somebody, which you should never do either. If you're not in such danger that you need to shoot immediately, if you have a chance to aim and everything, that's not imminent danger at that point. That's all. That puts you in a whole different category. But he suggested that people who shoot to wound do so when they don't think deadly force is really necessary, but decide to use it anyhow. And he cited an example where somebody, I think it was a police officer in the 50s, that shot to wound somebody that had a knife, and the guy decided to shoot to wound him and shot him in the arm, and he was holding the knife. The bullet hit the bone in the arm and deflected and went through his chest and lodged in the other arm, killing him instantly. Went through the heart and both lungs. So even a shoot to wound, if you get hit in the wrong spot in the leg, you'll bleed out in a matter of seconds. So,
well, that's kind of like that same scenario. A member of ours wrote in and said, "Look, if you have a car dealership and you got Lamborghinis and Ferraris and everything else, and you're standing there working, and the guy comes in with his mask on, he's like, 'Hey, I'm going to rob you and take these cars. I'm not going to hurt you, And he starts getting in the cars, and you're armed. It's like, what do you do? I'm like, I guess you let him take the cars because you don't want to protect property with a gun, unless he brings his gun up and raises it at you. They get cars free, I guess.
Well, you're free to use less lethal force. You could pepper spray him. You could wrestle with him. You could do things like that. So hopefully he's not armed. Now you do that at your own risk. The guy could pull out a gun or a knife he didn't know he had. So the question is, do you want to risk your life over a piece of property that's probably insured? That's up to each individual. The other thing that this person did in Fairfax City was they held the bad guy at gunpoint. Luckily for them, they won the lottery. They fired a shot in the floor, and the guy froze, stopped his attack, and then complied. And he waited till the police showed up being held at gunpoint. And again, I noted in that alert, you better plan what happens if they don't do what you say. Down on the floor. No, I'm not getting down on the floor. Get down on the floor. I'm not getting down on the floor. And he starts, don't walk towards me. And he starts walking towards you. Maybe he doesn't have a knife in his hand now. You're trying to hold him for the police. He dropped the knife, but now he's walking towards you. What do you do? You got to think about that. I mean, he doesn't have a knife anymore. Can you shoot him? Well, I don't know. He's walking towards you, but he doesn't have a knife. It gets really complicated holding somebody at gunpoint. And if he turns around and says, screw you, and he walks out the door, you can't shoot him. As long as he's not holding the knife. If he drops the knife and says, I'm leaving, he walks out the door, let him go, but you can't stop him anyway. You can't shoot him. You could try wrestling with him. Again, I don't think that's the smartest thing to do. I think that's why police have all the equipment they have in the training to wrestle with people like that and take them down. So there was a lot in there. I'm glad it turned out the way it did. As they say, all is well that ends well, but I have a lot of cautions in there that over the years and talking to people that have been through this stuff that I just like to remind people, don't get in the mindset where a gun is a talisman that will make somebody magically do what you tell them to do. Fredericksburg is looking at doing gun control. They tried to sneak something in late, but we have a really good watch team for local government leader out that way, and he's right there. He caught on to this. So we'll let everybody know if this goes to the next step. They're doing research right now. But we will, as like I said, anything dealing with gun control, we will not cede any ground. If they're going to go for it, they're going to have to put up with us flooding their building with people saying, no, don't do that. Fairfax County, I talked about them and their red flag laws. They're trying to educate people so that, in essence, they can abuse these red flag laws. Vortex, who makes sights and stuff for guns, they're supporting us again this year. They're providing a bunch of goodies that are going to be auctioned off on AR-15, ARFCOM as they call it, AR15.com, to raise money for Vcdl. So Vortex is a strong supporter. Also,
there's a lot of people that do stuff like that they don't have a lot of money to just send into the organization, but they manufacture something or do something, and they go, hey, I make these widgets, and I want to make 1,000 of them, and for every one I sell, I want to send $1 to you guys. We love stuff like that, and we'll put you in our alert, and we'll put you online and talk about you to help you be successful in helping raise money for us.
I talked to Tyler Izagiri. He was the one whose book was put out and said,
"Oh, yeah, did the book?"
Yeah, we made a quick $150 just on that. They sold 60 books just on that one little alert, and buried down towards the bottom of the alert. You had to kind of look to find it, and there it was. So that's exactly the kind of thing. Now we had a case where somebody was open carrying a gun, and they inadvertently walked onto school property and got arrested. So in an alert, I'll be reminding everybody, be sure you know where you are, especially if you're open carrying, that you haven't stepped onto
so you can't carry on school property even if it's 3:00 in the morning.
Right.
But a sex offender can, because school's not in session.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they're better off than gun owners. So so be careful of that. Maybe again the defense would be there if they can't show that he knew he was on school property. It sounds like he didn't know that. Then they won't be able to charge him with a felony. We'll see how that works out. We're looking. I think we're going to need some more lobby day team leaders. So if any of you out there have been a member for a couple of years or something of that effect, if you want to be a team lead, We're going to have these small teams going around in the General Assembly starting at 8 a.m., handing out the VCDL document that describes all the gun bills and whether they're good or bad and so forth. And also discussing a few of the key bills with legislators. If you want to be a team lead, send me an email, president@vcdl.org, and we'll get you on the list.
Whether you're going to be a team leader or just lobby on a team, please make an appointment with your own senator and delegate for lobby day. So after you've done lobbying with the team, you can go back to your own and meet face to face.
And that's what everybody else will be doing. Those that aren't on teams, we want you to go to your delegate, your senator, lobby them. I don't care if they're Democrat, Republican, just lobby them. And then leave the building so the next people can come in. The building has a several thousand limit on it because of fire code and all that. They do have a system set up. I met with a lot of the brass from the Capitol Police, the Richmond Police, and the State Police last Thursday. And they met with, they invited me down to meet with all of them in a big meeting to talk about lobby day so that they knew what to do and how it was going to work and what our plans were. So there will be a good police presence there. I explained to them, I said, if our members are going to be disarmed, I said, these people, some of them have threats against their lives, or they carry because they're, they feel their life and the life of their family is valuable. And the police, they all seem to be nodding along. They all understood that. But I said, since they're being disarmed, we're really going to need you guys to be there in force to make sure that everything is peaceful and everybody is well protected. And they said they would definitely have plenty of officers there on lobby day.
And Pat, sorry, Phil. Tess reminds everybody to watch for the alert, watch for online about announcement on buses, because we're all drinking from a fire hose at this point, and the information's coming fast. So when we find out what's going on with buses, we're going to get that out to you right away, so you can decide if you're going to take a bus and how we're going to work that.
Yeah, Tess and Layla both do the buses for us every year, and that's a big job. It can be a big job coordinating all that. But we're working on buses for those that want to come, because again, it's going to be at this point it's going to be a lobbying event, but a very important one. And if we do this right, we can very well get some good forward motion and get some of this stuff repealed and get some of this stuff fixed. And then we'll just keep doing this until we've repealed all that they've done, and then we're going to keep going. All we're really doing is restoring a right that's been taken away from us over time. One of the things that I've looked at is, various less lethal options that don't have things in code that are banned in, say, gun-free zones. This little Cubiton thing is by Asp. And this is actually a pepper spray that comes out in quite a stream out of the front of this thing. And it's so it's also a Cubiton. I mean, so you could it's a jabbing device. It has a safety on it that you thumb up. Let's see here. There we go. You thumb it up in this little safety that opens up here. Now it's ready to fire, and you handle it with your thumb. I don't know why the image froze, but
I thought you were gonna spray yourself for us, so when you see how effective it was.
Yeah, I'll be spraying the screen. I don't know what happened. It froze, but
It didn't froze. It didn't freeze to us.
Okay, it's frozen on my screen. Okay, but anyhow, that's this particular one is called an Asp, and if anybody's interested, it's I guess it's their part number U like Universe 15816. I believe that's the part number.
And you can remember it, because if you can't shoot them, you can kick their asp.
Yeah. So, but this has got some potent stuff in it. So it's just one of many less than lethal options. We'll probably talk about some other as time goes on. But it's 9:08. Pat, what did you have?
Well, we have people that are asking if the Zoom classes for concealed handgun permits are still accepted as an in-person class. So that's something we're going to have to check on. That was a COVID thing, and I don't know if they're still making that exception or not.
No, they didn't. That exception was only good for people that had taken an online course prior to December 31st last year. And it was good to.
No, not the same thing.
Oh,
Not the same thing.
talking about this,
there were some. There was, for a while there during the COVID restrictions, they were allowing instructors to do a Zoom class and calling it online, because as long as you could see the students in this,
like I was saying earlier.
You meant
students could
calling
see
it
the
in
instructor
person.
and the instructor could see the students.
Yeah, I wasn't
So,
aware of that one. Who was doing that?
Yes. That's Ed was talking about that earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know about that. I've never seen where they allowed a Zoom class to be in person. They did the in person for the CHP, for the handgun permit, to get the permit, but not for the class.
I'll tell you what, Ed.
Oh, okay. So you could do in person with the clerk of the court,
Right.
instead of taking it down there. Okay.
That's what I was thinking. I'd never heard of a class, but I was hey, this whole concept about a Zoom class, this would be a perfect question to ask our new Attorney General once he gets in. That would be an excellent one. So maybe VCDL should ask that question,
because it's interactive. It's not just like watching a video. It's like I'm asking you the question, you're answering me,
and you're right there. You're looking at each other, and you're So I think that'll be maybe something we would get an informal opinion on.
Again, it was good enough for the General Assembly. I mean,
Of course.
state law says that they can't pass law without us being able to be there and address them and voice our concerns. And they did it anyway.
Well, we know they're never hypocrites. We know that. Never too double standard down at the General Assembly.
Almost choked.
Well, what got me, one of the worst things that got me back in that 2020 was when the Democrats in the Rules Committee said, we can't carry, we're going to change the rules. You can't carry in the General Assembly bill because the chief of police says it's going to be very unsafe. And so that therefore we make this rule that you can't. And then Colonel Pike came back and said, actually, I never said that. You put words in my mouth. I said, if you're going to institute a no carry ban, here's how you need to do it to make it follow safety regulations and everything else. But Todd Gilbert was furious at that because he's like, I was there. That was never said. And we confirmed with Colonel Pike and he never said those things, but they went with it anyway.
Yeah, they had an agenda. And, if you're paid for by Bloomberg, you don't have to have any morals or anything. Trying to look through the questions here to see if there's anything else I should be addressing. See where Angela Akers is looking forward to coming to Lobby Day. Bless you, girl. We'll see you there. We're looking at having some cards to hand out to people as well. The board is talking about that. Some things that you can take in and leave with your delegate and senator when you lobby them. That will emphasize again all the key bills.
If you're planning on coming to Lobby Day, start trying to reach your representatives and get an appointment so that you have a date and a time slot to go talk to them.
Yeah, and if you got friends,
allow time to stand and get into the building.
I'm sorry, Pat. What did you say about the building?
I said, if you have an appointment, allow plenty of time because you'll probably have to stand in line to get into the building. They're limiting how many people will be able to go in at a time. Yes,
they have a system. They assured me that it's computerized somehow. And they know that X people went out and now X people can come in. Let's see. Robert Stratton talked about repealing Eo50, but I think Eo50, if I'm not mistaken, was the one that had was the gun ban at state agency buildings. And that was
DMV and the ABC stores.
That was codified. He can repeal it, but it's still state law now. So the repeal wouldn't do anything. But I think he should repeal it. I mean, it's a good point. It should go. Absolutely. Get that off the way. But then we need to change the law anyhow. Still looking here.
So I also want to remind people, if you do go to Lobby Day and you didn't get an appointment and you go by your senator and delegate's office, you can talk to their aide as well as talking to them. It's always better you can talk to the senator or delegate directly, but talking to their aide is the next best thing. And whether you see them or not, sign their guest book and mark down that you're a constituent and that you're a VCDL member, because they read those guest books.
Yeah,
and it will document that you were there.
And if you see them, follow up with a thank you note for them, even though they work for you. Follow up with a thank you note for their time and for listening to you. I'm telling you this from experience of the ones that you treat with respect, whether they disagree with you or not. You're going to get more face time with them over the years because they're like, I don't really agree with this guy, but he's a nice guy and I understand where he's coming from. And we've changed minds before with that attitude and that approach.
See,
yes,
Robert
absolutely. Find some common ground also. Find something that you have in common with them, whether it be kids or a hobby, sailboats, anything like that. And talk to them about that and put a human personal element into the equation. And then they're more likely to listen to you even when they disagree with you.
Yeah, even if you contact them, that's a good point, Pat. Even if you contact if you can put a personal twist on it, why does this law in particular... Oh, I'm muted here. Hold on. No, I'm not. Okay. How does this law affect you personally? You can say, well, I've had this happen or that. Whatever it is that makes it personal for you, share that. That way it's not just a talking point. It's like, this affects my life. Here's why. I go to a church. It has a daycare center. I don't know if I'm legal. I don't want to be thrown in jail. I'm not a criminal. But how do I know the way you've written this law? This law needs to go. It's whatever it is. If you make it personal, that really does help.
And after church, we always go for a walk in the park.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the park rules are. Do you see this question?
Vincent Smith did. Yeah, while we're on the subject of talking to representatives, though, Vincent Smith did an excellent video that's on the YouTube channel, the Vcdl YouTube channel, about talking to your local governments, and it applies to the state governments as well. So that's really worth looking at.
And here's a question that came in from Wrenchhead. Why exactly was VCDL and GOA dismissed from the gun ban lawsuit in Winchester? Well, the suit's going on, and we're helping out with it, but we're not technically the parties. And the reason is it deals with something called standing. And this is something in the courts that can drive me crazy sometimes. It certainly cut VCDL off at the knees before. We sued Fredericksburg one time because they were buying up guns, but they were destroying them instead of putting them up for auction like the law said. So we went to sue him, but we had the same lousy attorney general that we currently have, Herring. He wouldn't do anything, so we had to sue. And the court said, well, but VCDL doesn't have a dog in this fight, really. So you don't have standing. Therefore, you may have a point, but we can't go any further because you don't have standing. And that's exactly what happened in Winchester. They said, you're an organization. It's not like you are working downtown like the other people that are on this suit. You and GOA are just organizations. So we think he's wrong. The judge is wrong when he said that, but oh well. And so we were dismissed from the case. But no doubt here, the case is going forward. It's not really a setback. The case is moving forward, whether we're on it or not.
Yeah, it's just dismissed as plaintiffs. So VCDL and GOA are still very much involved in the case. They're just not named plaintiffs.
Exactly. That's a good question. Thanks. I saw, there was a psychologist that said he gets his online training through Zoom. So again, I'm sure it's the same thing where it's face-to-face, more or less face-to-face like we're doing here. Yeah, I think this will be interesting. So we may be able to ask the Attorney General. I've got some other thoughts and things I'd like to ask the Attorney General as well to get some rulings.
Yep.
Could be useful for gun owners. Yeah, there's the Robert Lewis is the one that Ed's put that up on the screen.
Well, that's all I have, I think.
Well, that was a great. Out of all of that, I think the best point was they said you can't do it online, but yet they conducted business online all through COVID. That's the best one.
Yeah, and that'll be a good reason to fix that. and point right to them and say, you prove that there's no problem doing this for things that are far more important.
Especially against state law.
Yeah. Things that affect people's lives and get you killed. Bad laws can get you killed. Yeah, so it's 9:19. I think I haven't seen any new questions coming up, so I think we're in good shape there. So
Certainly, you all have a Merry Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate.
Everybody tell all your friends, neighbors, gun owners that you know, show up for Lobby Day. Make sure that we have a ginormous crowd at Lobby Day.
yeah, I want another one of those big pictures where they go, oh my God, look at all the people all over the place.
Well, there must be 30 of them out there.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. There'll be 80,000, but they're going to say 30. Yeah, but we can do it. We can show up in massive numbers. And believe me, they notice this stuff. We can do this. Believe me, it's not in my nature to ask anybody to go anywhere unarmed. But this is a war. This is what we're stuck with because of the bad election 2 years ago. And we can't let them win because we're not going to show up. We got to show up and fix this. We won't have to do it again.
You do want to try to get there in the morning, if at all possible, because in the afternoon they're going to be in session. So,
but if
morning
you
is the
can in the
best.
afternoon, then get there. You'll talk to the aides. That's fine.
Right.
You know, I know some people are going to be coming, 4 hours away, 5 hours away. I hate to think of them getting up at 2 a.m. This way they could get up and arrive in the afternoon. It would still be useful to be there in the afternoon. I'd like to see the building busy all day until like
all day long
possible. So they can't get away from those Gun Saves Live stickers and the little cards that you'll be handing out.
And the Thursday that week after Lobby Day, that Thursday, we also have a live online meeting like this to kind of update you on the important bills and where things are going and what things we're doing. And I'll be attending that one from SHOT Show in Vegas, but we'll still be here on that Thursday night.
And we'll have a pre-Lobby Day dinner. Again, the information was in the previous alert. We'll put it out, but that's just vague information. We're going to start the RSVPs pretty soon. But there will be a pre-Lobby Day dinner for those of you that are either in the Richmond area or spending, as I know many are, they'll be spending the night at hotels and stuff so they can be at the General Assembly bright and early. So we will have that if you'd like to get together. That's always a lot of fun, as you could imagine.
Boots, the answer to your question is somewhere between 60 and 80,000 as per photos and computer scanning and correcting and counting by digitally counting. The Richmond police looked on the Capitol grounds and said they estimated 20,000. So when you hear one number, it's 20,000, but the number's closer between 50 or 60,000 is probably the most accurate.
I talked to somebody at the Capitol Police that said there's no way. He'd never seen a crowd that big for something like that. So, yeah, he was thinking easily well over 50,000.
Yep.
We say 50 to be conservative on it. 20 is ridiculous. That's ridiculous. But 50 at least is conservative. I'd rather do that than overstate something. So I'm completely comfortable.
That's a Democrat counting.
Yes.
Also, if you're a Lobby Day veteran, if you've done it a couple of times before and you're willing to be a team lead, give us a shout. We need several more team leads.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun and doing a big service to your fellow gun owners to be a team lead and going around. That way, you don't have to see too many. We can divide the building up so that you're on one floor and you don't have to see a million delegates and senators. You'll have a list that's reasonable that you can get it done in a reasonable amount of time because we'll have so many different teams. And it's really nothing to it. If you've ever done it, if you've ever been with a team before.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, all it means is that you're going to have assigned offices. And what we do is we take all the senators and all the delegates and we split up the offices between all the team leads. And that way we make sure we cover every single senator and delegate. And the team lead has assigned offices that they go to. They make appointments ahead of time, if at all possible. And they have a packet explaining all the bills, which ones we support, which ones we don't support, and the reasons why. And you're given talking points that you can talk to the senator or delegate. and you leave them the packet. And that's all there is to it.
By the way, I'll put the packet up. I'll put up that document right before lobby day. It may be that weekend. Usually what happens, because I have to wait like the last minute to get as many of the bills in, because there might still be some that drop after that day, but most of them will be in by lobby day, hopefully. And that way it'll be online, and you could read up on it and have the talking points in your head if you want, as well as distribute.
And if there's bills that particularly affect you, pick those to talk about, and again, relate them to some human aspect. This affects me because, or I'm opposed to this bill because I had this happen to me in my life and I need to be able to carry in this situation, and your bill deprives me of that. So anytime that you can put the human element into it, it really makes it a lot more effective.
Absolutely. Well, Merry Christmas to everybody. I'm feel much better this year where we are, where we're going, and being at the General Assembly than I did last year and the year before. In fact, I think the feeling amongst a lot of legislators that are friends of ours are the same way. It's a very, very good feeling, a very optimistic feeling. Now, it won't be perfect. We never get everything we want, but we there's some key things that we need to get done this year. And we're just
What's this, our 20th or 21st lobby day?
At least, yeah, something to that effect. It's 20th, 21st, right in that ballpark. I think we may have started in 2000 and might be the 19th. I'll have to look. It was around 2000, 2001, right in that ballpark. We did our first one.
Yep. Well, thank you all for joining us. Share this video. The link will be on our Facebook page and in the alert, and also on our link tree, which shows the most current version of this. And then share this out so that people that would benefit from listening to it can listen to it, to and from work, and hear what's going on.
And thanks to all those that show up from out of state too. I wanted to thank you guys for being here and being a part of the fight. We've seen people checking in from around the country. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.